as he's trying.
You have done your work, you have put us to the wall. We are not the slaves.
I'm not a small boy. You should have given me the report. I have not seen the report.
A very good morning to you. What an exciting Thursday morning it is. I'm Uyag Mofwegbe bringing you Global Morning. This is Abuja, where we're live from. It's Nigeria's capital, and this is Global Television. It's a great Thursday, no doubt about that. It just also means that we are inching even closer to Friday, when the weekend for many people actually begins. But that hasn't changed the fact that it's also a wonderful opportunity, and Global TV being the platform for us to discuss very salient and vital issues as they affect our lives as the people, as governments, and as well as an economy. Speaking of which, by the way, the economy, several efforts being made now to ensure that we get on the right path, on the winning path. You realize that we are still failing in certain areas. For instance, just this week, the DG, that is the Director General of the World Trade Organization, our own Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, had said that some of the items, including shea butter, coming out of Nigeria for the purpose of exports, are substandard, which means there's a challenge with them, and that's quite disturbing, particularly when you look at it from the standpoint of how that, as of today, we have a situation where Nigeria still deals with so much of a shortage, what some people call gap, with regards to export. So the question is, what exactly can we do about that to raise our game? Recall that just a few years ago, we had also had issues where certain items, particularly Greek-specific items from Nigeria, export items, were not accepted in the US and across Europe for the same issues that have to do with standards and regulations. So it's quite a disturbing situation, but we need to have that conversation in the course of the show this morning. What should we be doing in terms of value chain? What should we be looking at? What efforts should we be making? What adjustments should we make with regards to standards and compliance, all right, particularly as it has to do with the international markets? Obviously, it's a different thing when these products are for domestic consumption. Incidentally, that isn't the case just yet. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of those, and then we also need to look at the challenges with the new direction announced by the president regarding the full implementation of the Oronsaye report, which has now been dusted after about a decade, to say, look, it's high time we merged ministries in some cases, in other cases departments or agencies of government, to ensure that going forward we are able to cut costs, all right, and bring about a system where we are not working at cross purposes, all right, where we don't have duplicity of efforts or institutions, all right. So we understand that certain institutions now will be merged, all right, going forward, whether it's FRCN and Voice of Nigeria, VON, or NBC, and the NCC, and so on and so forth. We understand there's going to be some rivalry. We understand that bureaucracy has to be factored into the mix. We understand that the government will have to find the will and the courage to pull this off. But then, whatever they say is worth doing at all is worth doing well. That's one lesson we must learn from here. We're going to take a quick break now, and we'll return shortly to discuss some very important issues with you here on the show. Do stay with us, everyone. appreciate you staying with us, everyone. There are big stories coming through the news this morning. Of course, we have the newspaper review up ahead for you, but then there are some of these stories we need to quickly just wrap our heads around, talk about them a little here, a little there. I'm joined by my colleague, senior anchor here at Global Television, Anthony Momodu. Anthony, thank you for jumping on the show this morning.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
I'm sure, like everyone else around here, you've been following the stories between last night in particular and this morning. Labour, it appears, is no longer asking for 1 million naira minimum wage by way of proposal to the federal government. It has now slashed it to 500,000. That's what Labour is demanding now as minimum wage. Currently, we understand flat out it's 30,000, even though we know a handful of states like Edo, Imo, perhaps Kwara have said we can do 40,000, but it's still a long drawn out. I mean, the difference is quite significant from, I mean, between 30 and 40,000 on the one hand and 500,000. The finances of the federal governments, I mean, revenues are not in a very good shape right now. How feasible is this? We know it's not cast in concrete. There's going to be a bit of negotiation here and there and things like that. I mean, you have followed labor relations, particularly in recent times. Let's talk about that for a minute.
I think it's a little bit more realistic if we had a very sincere government. If you look at how much they spend on other government activities, then you say
that may not be very relevant.
Very relevant. If you look at the number of committees they set up to look at, for example, the Stephen Osanya's report, the National Assembly House of Rep set up a 23-man committee, and you're asking, do you need 23 men to look at that report? 5 good heads are good enough to look at that report extensively and give us something very positive. Then you look at the number of cars, SUVs, the government buys, then you say it's kind of realistic if you also look at the amount of money the senators, the House of Rep members earn compared to what these civil servants go through, the fact that they don't have all those extra allowances which lawmakers have. And the current situation, yes, 500,000, not too much, but you could say, okay, maybe the senior staff, 500,000, the middle, rank and file, it will make it 300,000, for instance. Quite realistic. So it's something the government can pay if we had a sincere government. And it might not be a full blast payment. Maybe you pay 200,000, the rest will becomes as, allowances based on performance. You add up to arrive to that 500,000. So in such a way, you're spreading out the, instrumental payment. So it's something the government could do if we had a sincere government. But for Labour, I think that for the first time, they're seeming to be realistic, even though the 500,000 also looks, you have to take it has to be a very, very caring government to agree to pay that huge amount of money. So, but it's like you rightly pointed out, it's something they're going to negotiate. That's why they pegged it at 500,000. At worst, they're going to fall back to probably 200,000 at the end of the day as the new national minimum wage.
Yeah, it's interesting because Labour has become a bit controversial lately, particularly this last proposed two-day demonstration that they did, even though we know by the end of that first day they had cut off the second day. But what we did notice was that the TUC, the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, did not join, and it was not a secret because the Secretary General, Osifo, had come out to also say or state the reason they didn't join, and that's also pitted the TUC against the Labour, even though together they're supposed to be the organized Labour. And we understand that over 150 other affiliates did not join that demonstration as well. A house divided against itself, they say, cannot stand. Do we still have that formidable Labour that we had some few decades ago?
I think the Labour Union died during the era of Ayuba Waba. That was when they began to lose their relevance, because from that time, several times they did call for protests, if you remember very well. Nigerians did not even support them at that time. Joe Ajaero is trying to revive that spirit, but I think he also goofed, especially in that after that Imo incident. Then this
did that diminish his credibility?
Yeah, it did, because it divided Nigerians. It made Labour for the first time look like a partisan group, and the fact that it happened in his home state.
Around the election period.
Election period, and it had to do with Labour Party too. So it made everything look kind of obvious. And
the gentleman has been accused of also being a card-carrying member of the Labour Party.
Yeah. So and fast forward this one, then the fact that it was a 2-day protest. turned one, told you that he was being careful. He had to continue saying they were going to go for the protest because he wanted to save face. So immediately he had the opportunity to do that first day. He just thought the smart thing to do. And if you realize, labor protests we know in Nigeria does not come with taking a letter to the National Assembly gates to give to the National Assembly to fast forward to the president. We have never seen that in the previous labor protests we've had. It's always going on the street, making their demands known, the government calling them. But this time he decided to say, okay, the protest was going to be taken to the National Assembly gate. A letter will be given. So I just felt he was just trying to play smart so that even if Nigerians didn't join them, especially with the number of 65 other CSOs that also left, it would be like, okay, the protests were just from their headquarters to the National Assembly gate. So not really rallying Nigerians through, because he wasn't very certain if he was going to get the support of Nigerians. So I think Labour has, to an extent, lost its bite, and the federal government doesn't take them serious. The comment of Mr. President after the protest also shows further killed whatever Labour had left, saying, okay, it was too quick for you to judge me in 9 months, and if you wanted to be part of politics, then the next elections come out, and you are
your heart in the ring.
You're not the only voice in Nigeria. So that alone just made Labour look very, the whole thing made them look like it was a child's play.
It's interesting. They say he who must come to equity has got to come with clear hands. So you can't create double or multiple standards in this case. But
sorry, just
yes.
Talking about the TUC. I think the TUC has, in the past, they used to be a formidable partner of the NLC, but of recent, we noticed that they seem to always play on the side of the government. And I think this last one made it so obvious. That's why I feel Labour as a group, they've lost the ideology, because these same people...
That's the organized Labour.
The organized Labour, because these same two groups came out to tell us they were going for the strike action. All right? So how come days to the protest, you're not saying they didn't tell you? How it's laughable, because there's no way the NLC wouldn't have informed you, and there's no way you wouldn't have known anything that the NLC was planning. So I think it just showed that yes, they were for the government, even though they were with Labour, and for them to back out. So Labour wanted to prove a point to TUC that we can do it without you. So they insisted on going for that that protest.
It's interesting. Now you're asking for, okay, like the same business, asking price, we should call it.
Price,
yes, 500,000 now all the way for 1 million. I've spoken with economists, especially those who have sizable background in labor relations and basic economics. They say, look, no matter how much you pay, if the fundamentals, economic fundamentals, that is, are not addressed, the same problem persists. So it's not about whether the Nigerian worker, by way of minimum wage, gets paid 500,000 on a monthly basis or 1 million naira. The important thing is, has government dealt with the underlying issues? I mean, inflation, for example, local production, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Have we addressed those issues? So let's assume, I mean, let's paint a scenario now. Anthony, you and I wake up tomorrow morning and government says across board, I mean, federal, subnationals, we're ready to pay 500,000. Does that make life better for the
I think at the end of the day, it's going to make life worse for everybody, because what it means, automatically prices are going to even jump up further.
Rent, foodstuff, and everything else.
So that money is going to turn out useless. And like you pointed out, the inflation, which is still ongoing, the fact that production is not, those monies, if they were channeled into, for instance, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, their sector, then we will begin to make progress. But rather, and also the importation of goods, we hear the government say 144 trucks and co were, intercepted from, trying to move things. So if those basic things are not stopped, then definitely the monies wouldn't make sense at the end of the day. It's further going to impoverish the economy, and so we're going to go back to square one, which is going to make things even worse.
It's
so, but it's funny that Labour is not pulling on all sides, trying to. It shows that Labour is like they're not very smart in terms of their demands on
and engagement with
their
the
expectation from the government. Because if they were smart, you know that, okay, these are the things the government needs to put in place for things to work out. You don't give them 7 days to answer all your prayers. It's like you're being childish. But when you say, okay, government will give you 4 months, we expect inflation
with the timeline.
We expect, okay, this for an agricultural sector, we want to see that, okay, 100 farmers are beginning to produce social amount of goods.
Want to see increased investment in certain areas of the economy.
Those professional bodies in the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector will be the first to want to support you when you call for protest, because they've seen that, okay, yes, you recognize their roles and you've given the government recommendation and task for them to do to, get the economy running. So when the government fails, then when you call for protest, professional bodies would join you, and everybody will see, yes, it's the government that's failing, not you. But when you give government 7 days to get the job done, it's not magic.
Yeah, I can imagine. But let's keep our fingers crossed, because we understand that whether you like it or not, this is not going away just yet. We understand Labour still has some strike action planned for sooner than later, but maybe that's a conversation for another day. But something interesting popped up yesterday about how that 24 states now, out of 36, cannot pay salaries without federal government allocation. So if you put that in perspective, what it means is, should allocation cuts or drop drastically from the federal to the subnationals, what the report is saying that at least 24 states are not going to be able to pay salaries, and talks about 11 states that can pay salaries with or without allocation. Just a couple of them. I mean, 11 of them, like I said. And then we have this labor mix in the middle of all of these. So what does that say exactly about where Nigeria is as a country?
I think if we remember some few months back, when the list of the IGR states with intelligent revenue, you could see that only few, I think 9 states were the top 10 that could generate revenue. So what it tells you is that state governments do not look for alternative ways to generate income. They just solely depend on the federal allocation to share the money, pay salaries. So the question is, so what do governors do from January to December? Wait for allocations, fly abroad, expend security votes, try to divert security votes to personal use, and they do not put down structures, or they do not have any blueprint as to how to generate income, how to better the lives of the people or the state, or tap into the resources of the state. Because if they were all tapping into resources of their various states, then definitely, it's not just probably, definitely there will be source of income being generated. Already the farmers across these states are not going to farm because of the insecurity. And so everybody, what they do is just wait for federal allocation. When the federal allocation is gone, the next thing they do is, okay, follow the president on any official trip, say they are trying to get business coming to the country, and now seek for loans from the World Bank. That's why lots of critics say the IMF and the World Bank are doing Nigerian governors no good, because most times they just give them loans upon loans, and the governors do not pay back. And at the same time, the World Bank does not have any sincere and effective monitoring mechanism to be sure that, okay, these monies are used for the reasons why these loans are given.
We apply for the
so most times, even when the little money they've got, they use it to service this debt, and so the cycle
just continues. And it's a vicious cycle.
Vicious, very vicious, because most of these governors, before they get into power, they borrow lots of money. So once they get into power, the first chunk of money they get is to pay back,
defray those debts.
That they now start accumulating for themselves and their families. So there's no room for thinking, okay, how can the state start?
Rather, by the time they're leaving office, the debt profile would have either doubled or tripled.
And the only states, the few states you can say the governor has sincerely tried to use the state resources is Niger State, for instance. Governor Bogo, who has marked huge hectares of lands to say, okay, we're going to use this for farming, for XYZ. So now the good thing is that when investors come in, he has something to show them, okay, this is where I want you to invest in. You've got a piece of land, do whatever you can do. And once he succeeds, such a state would start generating income. I think that's one thing Lagos State has. They're using their resources to generate income.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's interesting because we talked about the 11 states a while ago that are now IGR viable, so to speak. And those states here are said to be, like you mentioned, Lagos. Of course, there's Kano, which are often referred to as the Lagos of the North. All right, and then you have Anambra, you have Edo, Enugu, Imo, Kaduna, Kwara, Osun, Ogun, and Zamfara. Who would have thought? Zamfara, first state where you have had banditry at its worst.
I think for Zamfara, is it
the gold?
That same gold is what is giving Zamfara
that sort of competitive advantage.
And not farming and not anything else.
Because farming has been depleted to a very large extent.
Obviously. So the issue there in Zamfara is, why is the money just going to the state government and those involved in that illicit mining?
With regards to the mining, monies from mining.
So maybe for me, I think the federal government could do better is probably take that out of the exclusive list, give it to the state governors. Probably now we know that, okay, you're generating X amount, give us this.
That's a Pandora's box, as they say, that you're opening. I'll tell you why, because this is supposed to be a resource control element, right? I mean...
but the federal government is not, they're not getting...
Because there's no sincerity of purpose. Because if you say, for example, let's take it off the exclusive, the exclusive list, and then give it to the states, right? What that's going to do is that you are going to have to first of all go back to the parliament to say, let's alter the constitution. So there's got to be a constitutional amendment on that level. Now, going further than that, it means you also need to go back to the Niger Delta, for example, and say, Bayelsa, all your oil belongs to you. Rivers, all your oil belongs to you. Akwa Ibom, Edo, and every other state that has oil, you're going to do that. You go to, say, Ondo, for example, and you say your cocoa or whatever it is, it belongs to you. So when you do that, the question is, I mean, you're rocking the boat already.
Yeah.
How does that, I mean, what are the implications? Because whether you like it or not, I mean, there are ramifications for such an action.
Because what I'm looking at is currently the way the country is run, everything being at the center is not helping us anymore.
So we have to unbundle.
Yes, because for instance, let's look at the issue of state police. For long, everybody has said, no need for state police, we're not going to go there.
Governors will abuse it.
But suddenly, everybody is like, okay, that's
the way to go.
That's where we are. We don't even have a choice. So why can't we also see resource control as another option, as something that the reality is? That's where, because when these governors have access to this, now we can hold them responsible. Now the federal can say, okay, we know that this is X amount of resources you have. This is X amount that should come on yearly or monthly basis. This is the X amount we want as the federal. We don't want to know whatever challenges you're going through. You must give us this X amount. If you don't give us that, we can do this. We put it as a measure to ensure that this comes to the center. Then probably that would help production and activities on the state level. Then it makes it more easier for us to get our foreign exchange. So when it has to do with export, then the federal government can have a stronghold on that when it comes to that sector. Then maybe that would help the economy.
Interesting, Anthony. Just to add to that, just yesterday, for example, we had a guest here, Aruna Brimo, who basically was talking about how that, yes, for a long time we've talked about federal. I mean, somebody has a headache, they want to go to the federal government. Somebody didn't wake up on the right side of bed, they want to go to the federal government. Whereas they have governors, they have local government chairmen. At least we understand that even in states where elections, I mean, local government elections have not been conducted in many years, all thanks to those governors who have become more like emperors. At least you have caretaker committees, right? What are those governors doing? How are they accountable? Is there probity? All right? Are they talking to their people as to how they are spending their money? The monies are not the governors' monies. We've got to understand that, because the governors make it look like, well, we're your daddy now in these states. We're so kind, we're so generous, so we came to use our hard-earned money to be of a blessing to you. So the people become so mentally impoverished that they don't have the mental capacity to ask questions. Because I know of a state, for example, where a governor was being asked on a number of occasions, how much did you spend fixing this kilometer of road? Because the road was not so bad, you just had to do a bit of fixing. Okay. How much did you spend constructing this new road? Whether the governor lied to the people about the figures or not, but at least we do understand that the people did have the balls to ask questions. Because people must follow the money. People must ask governors, what are you doing with the allocation? We understand it has increased, by the way, very significantly in the last few months, all thanks to the suspension of subsidy payments on petroleum products. But I'm afraid time will fail us to continue this conversation. Okay. Hopefully, it's a narrative we're going to have right after the global AMUs.
And I think, just to chip in, I think the burden is on the people now to ask questions.
Step up their game, right?
It's very annoying when a governor, when he commissions any project and the people are thanking him and making an idol out of him. He has done them a favor. It's their right. I think that's where the problem is.
It's a culture we need to watch, quite frankly, starting from today. I mean, that's long overdue, no doubt about it. We're taking a quick break, everyone. Up next is the AM News, and behind that, we'll take a look at the papers for you, and we'll be closely followed by two big conversations. Do not go away.
Only 110 calories. One medium potato makes a healthy side for any meal. One medium potato with skin provides 15% of recommended daily value of potassium. Hello and welcome to another episode on Taste and Texture. I am Fatima Abumar. And now to the ingredients needed in making this delicacy. Irish potato, oil, beef seasoned with seasoning, paprika, cumin, corn flour, and soy sauce. Carrot, green beans, pepper, onion, garlic, cumin, basil, corn flour, soy sauce. Now let's make it. Step 1. Boil your potatoes until soft. Then add your seasoning beef to a pot and salt until brown. Add garlic, onion, pepper, and fry. Then add your carrot and green beans. Then add your cooked potatoes combined together with corn flour slurry. Add a little water, soy sauce, cumin, basil leaves and seasoning, then combine thoroughly until it's ready. It's as delicious as it looks. And now to the health benefits. Rich in vitamins and minerals. Potatoes are a great source of essential minerals and vitamins for optimal health. Potatoes contain a significant amount of vitamin C, which boosts your immune system, functions and promotes collagen production for skin. Potatoes are also rich in vitamin B6, which supports brain function and aids in production of neurotransmitters. High in fiber. Fiber is a vital nutrient that aids digestion and promotes a healthy gut. Potatoes, mainly when consumed with skin, are an excellent source of dietary fiber. Support.